So long as there shall exist, by virtue of law and custom, decrees of damnation pronounced by society, artificially creating hells amid the civilization of earth and adding the element of human fate to divine destiny, so long as the three great problems of the century, the degradation of man through pauperism, the corruption of women through hunger, the crippling of children through lack of light, are unsolved, so long as social asphyxia is possible in any part of the world. In other words, and with a still wider significance, so long as ignorance and poverty exist on earth, books of the nature of Les Miserables cannot fail to be of use. Volume 1, Fantine. Book First, A Just Man. Chapter 1, M. Myriel. In 1815, M. Charles Francois Bienvenu Myriel was Bishop of Dijon. He was an old man of about 75 years of age. He had occupied the see of Dijon since 1806. Although this detail has no connection whatever with the real substance of what we're about to relate, it will not be superfluous, if merely for the sake of exactness in all points, to mention here the various rumors and remarks which had been in circulation about him from the very moment when he arrived in the diocese. True or false, that which is said of men often occupies as important a place in their lives, and above all in their desires, as that which they do. M. Myriel was the son of a councillor of the Parliament of Aix. Hence he belonged to the nobility of the Bar. It was said that his father, destining him to be the heir of his own post, had married him at a very early age, 18 or 20, in accordance with a custom which is rather widely prevalent in parliamentary families. In spite of this marriage, however, it was said that Charles Myriel created a great deal of talk. He was well-formed, though rather short in stature, elegant, graceful, intelligent. The whole of the first portion of his life had been devoted to the world and to gallantry. The Revolution came. Events succeeded each other with precipitation. The parliamentary families, decimated, pursued, hunted down, were dispersed. M. Charles Myriel emigrated to Italy at the very beginning of the Revolution. There his wife died of a malady of the chest from which she had long suffered. He had no children. What took place next in the fate of M. Myriel? The ruin of the French society of the olden days, the fall of his own family, the tragic spectacles of '93, which were, perhaps, even more alarming to the emigrants who viewed them from a distance, with the magnifying powers of terror. Did these cause the ideas of renunciation and solitude to germinate in him? Was he, in the midst of these distractions, these affections which absorbed his life, suddenly smitten with one of those mysterious and terrible blows which sometimes overwhelm, by striking to his heart a man whom public catastrophes would not shake, by striking at his existence and his fortune? No one could have told. All that was known was that when he returned from Italy, he was a priest. In 1804, M. Myriel was the curé of Brignoles. He was already advanced in years and lived in a very retired manner. About the epoch of the coronation, some petty affair connected with his curacy, just what is not precisely known, took him to Paris. Among other powerful persons to whom he went to solicit aid for his parishioners was M. le Cardinal Fesch. One day, when the emperor had come to visit his uncle, the worthy curé, who was waiting in the anteroom, found himself present when His Majesty Napoleon passed, and finding himself observed with a certain curiosity by this old man, turned around and said abruptly, "Who is this good man who is staring at me?" "Sire," said M. Myriel, "you are looking at a good man, and I at a great man. Each of us can profit by it." That very evening, the emperor asked the cardinal the name of the curé, and some time afterwards M. Myriel was utterly astonished to learn that he had been appointed Bishop of Dijon. What truth was there, after all, in the stories which were invented as to the early portion of M. Muriel's life? No one knew. Very few families had been acquainted with the Muriel family before the Revolution. And Muriel had to undergo the fate of every newcomer in a little town, where there are many mouths which talk, and very few heads which think. He was obliged to undergo it, although he was a bishop, and because he was a bishop. But after all, the rumors with which his name was connected were rumors only, noise, sayings, words, less than words, palabras, as the energetic language of the South expresses it. However that may be, after 9 years of episcopal power and of residence in Dijon, all the stories and subjects of conversation which engross petty towns and petty people at the outset had fallen into profound oblivion. No one would have dared to mention them. No one would have dared to recall them. M. Muriel had arrived at Dijon accompanied by an elderly spinster, Mademoiselle Baptistine, who was his sister, and 10 years his junior. Their only domestic was a female servant of the same age as Mademoiselle Baptistine, and was named Madame Magloire, who, after having been the servant of M. Leclerc, now assumed the double title of maid to Mademoiselle and housekeeper to Monseigneur. Mademoiselle Baptistine was a long, pale, thin, gentle creature. She realized the ideal expressed by the word respectable, for it seems that a woman must needs be a mother in order to be venerable. She had never been pretty. Her whole life, which had been nothing but a succession of holy deeds, had finally conferred upon her a sort of pallor and transparency, and as she advanced in years she had acquired what may be called the beauty of goodness. What had been leanness in her youth had become transparency in her maturity, and this diaphaneity allowed the angel to be seen. She was a soul rather than a virgin. Her person seemed made of a shadow. There was hardly sufficient body to provide for sex, a little matter enclosing a light, large eyes forever drooping, a mere pretext for a soul's remaining on the earth. Madame Magloire was a little, fat, white old woman, corpulent and bustling, always out of breath, in the first place because of her activity, and in the next because of her asthma. On his arrival, M. Muriel was installed in the episcopal palace with the honors required by the imperial decrees, which class a bishop immediately after a major general. The mayor and the president paid the first calls on him, and he, in turn, paid the first calls on the general and the prefect. The installation over, the town waited to see its bishop at work.